Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Rigely here with another Lessons from the CEO. And I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be joined by a very dear friend. We've been friends for a long, long time. The founder of Life Work Integration. We're going to talk about that. Also, Global Leadership Committee Chair for EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization, of which I was a member for 20 years. And that's where we met. We actually were in a peer-to-peer CEO mastermind group together, consummate entrepreneur, and a very interesting detail, which I'm going to share with you a little bit later on, about who he is and how ferocious the guy is, even though he looks like a nice guy. My very good friend, Jamie Douraghy. Jamie, thanks so much for taking the time, brother. Really appreciate it.
Oh, Rigely, absolutely my pleasure, and thank you for the invitation.
Well, so we just got to kick this off and not mess around, man. So last year, you were the number one top fencer in your age category in the United States of America. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, title I held on to for a full 12 months.
But
Now I'm 32.
12 months at number one in the United States is pretty good. Now, so we're going to get into the entrepreneurial thing here in a second, but I'd love to ask the first question being, you are an elite athlete. You've been an elite athlete for a very, very long time. Otherwise, you could not be number one in the U.S., especially not in things that are as competitive as fencing. How has that elite performance helped you in your business?
How that's helped me in my business really is the appreciation for, number one, always having a coach, always having someone that has been there before. Number two is having a team, a supportive team around you. And then number three is the importance of small steps and daily learning. So fencing is a sport that evolves over incremental steps, forward and backwards. I often use fencing for a metaphor for how we handle life under pressure. And so those are the three areas where I feel fencing as a sport has helped me in my life and in my work.
And just to give everybody some context, you've been in competitions all over the world. I mean, it's taken you everywhere, fencing, right? Am I right about that?
I've been very fortunate in that I've had something that is a part of me that I invested my time, energy, effort, resources, passion into. And the ROI on that is exponential in terms of how it's helped me focus in life. And the lessons learned on the strip, are on, as I call it, the fencing strip, are as important as the lessons that we learn out in the world of business.
Well, I'd love to have in our dialogue, please infuse those anywhere that it seems appropriate or relevant, because it's fascinating. I don't get a chance to often speak with elite athletes that are at the top of their game, which obviously you are, and having been a business guy for a really long time. But in that regard, take us back. Did you start out as an entrepreneur, or did you go the corporate route first and then switch over? What was your journey to being a successful business person and entrepreneur?
My initial goal in life was to serve in the foreign service. I actually got a master's degree of international relations from Syracuse University and set my sights for Washington, D.C. I struggled, was not really what I thought it was. You know, we had this picture in our minds that this is what we're going to do. And after a while, an opportunity came to work with my brother in Chicago. So I packed up my bags and moved from DC to Chicago, where we started Artisan Creative. And that was my introduction. I realized that I was not a very good employee. And if I had learned the right skills, I could become a better employer. And that set me off on my entrepreneurial journey.
I want everybody to pay attention to what Jamie just said. I was not a very good employee, but if I learned the right skills, I might become a good employer. That's profound, man. That is a very deep statement. And for budding entrepreneurs, many of the people that are going to be watching or listening to this program are in that stage. Maybe they're just getting going, or maybe they've got a couple people on their team, but they're looking to start scaling, and learning to become a good employer is kind of important if you want to do more than just be a solopreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lone Ranger was not much of a team player.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly right, by definition.
Right.
So Tell him if you were to think of and being a part of leadership in the entrepreneurs organization, and just for everybody that's out there, the entrepreneurs organization is one of the elite CEO organizations that is global all over the world. I was in for 20 years, Jamie, even longer. I've been blessed to speak at entrepreneur organization chapters and meetings in 35 different countries. So it's been pretty amazing, the journey with those guys. And if you look back on all of that, what would you say are two of the top characteristics of successful entrepreneurs?
For me, two of the top characteristics of successful entrepreneurs, the number one is self-awareness. It's really important to know your strengths and equally important to know your struggles. The second most important one for me is authenticity, is to be true to yourself. There's a common phrase, and this is one of these phrases that it's never sat well with me. It's fake it till you make it. And when everyone says that, they kind of have this little smirk on their face. And my preference is to say, do it until you become it. And that's probably how my fencing got better over time. I kept doing it. I never found myself able to fake it on the strip, because every time I was faking it, I get nailed. It's in real time. And so that transition of just doing that till you become it, for me, set a very solid background, a solid baseline, that when I was fencing trials or challenges or opportunities, I knew that I was still doing that, and I was becoming a better entrepreneur incrementally.
No, let's talk about that for a second, because there are so many people who find themselves chasing the shiny penny, right? Just jumping from one thing to another thing to another thing. You've been that person who's been 100% committed to things over the long haul. What could you say to the folks that are out there that they're trying their best, but they're not quite there yet? And so consequently, the shiny penny syndrome is a little bit harder to resist because they don't have any background of resisting it. What can you say to those people about how staying the course has served you both on the strip and in business?
I'll use a quote from my mentor that I learned three things from him. First is clarity of vision. The second thing is certainty of intent. And the third is power of values. And when I would feel that would not be partnering up with the right people, I always look to my values. And then I would look to my intent. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And then that all comes down to what's my vision as an entrepreneur. Because there are many opportunities, there are too many opportunities to be led in multiple directions. And I did go down multiple avenues. I ran a comic book company for a while. I had a movie production company for a while. I entered into a digital agency with another person. All of them didn't work to the way that I had envisioned of them because I was not certain of my intent. It was more of an opportunity to make money. And when I then started leaving those behind and I was clear of my intention, then I realized that I could say, and I should say, no, thank you to a lot more other opportunities because they were not in my, let's say, my zone of excellence.
I think that's such a key point, Jamie. And I found myself really trying to focus on that. It almost seems like every year that becomes more important. The what are you saying no to, as opposed to what you're saying yes to, because there's so many A, distractions, B, time sucks, C, shiny pennies, D, things that look interesting, but what's below the surface or behind the closed door, you don't see it yet. And then you get there like, geez. And so speak a little bit about that concept of staying in your zone of genius and why that is such a huge determinant of success over the course of time.
I'll use fencing as an example. Fencing has three weapons: foil, epee, and saber. And I tried all three at different times because I wanted to be good at all three. And after a while, I realized that I could only be really good at one. So I let saber and epee go to the side and I focused on foil. And that allowed me to really concentrate and take myself from good to better at each time. And fencing, one of the things I learned from my coach is that he said, distraction is distraction is distraction. It doesn't matter in what shape or form it shows up in, it's still distraction. And for one to get to that next level, it's easy to get motivated. There's lots of external, a lot of times motivation is extrinsic, comes from the outside. We've seen posters, listen to videos, all those wonderful ways of getting motivated. What really helped me become better was to move from motivation to determination. And for me, determination is more intrinsic. It has to feel from inside. And the bridge between motivation and determination for me is discipline. And the quote from my mentor as well was, discipline doesn't care, discipline simply does. And the times when I didn't feel like it were the times I had to really get up and get out there and do it even more.
So the bridge from motivation to determination, is that what you said?
Is discipline. That's the bridge.
I
That's
love
what connects
that.
the two.
I love that. I'm always reminded of my mentor, one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, always talking about that you can have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And the pain of discipline lasts a little bit and then you get it done. The pain of regret lasts forever. I just love that because that discipline thing seems so elusive to so many people. And yet I don't know any successful entrepreneur over the long term, not a flash in the pan situation, who doesn't have that quality of you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. And it's written about in numerous books. We can read the same business book, the same business story, and all of them seem to have that same golden thread that unites them. And that's that one word is the discipline and the ability to focus on their core purpose, their meaning, their definition, whatever feeds your fuel, focusing on that in the long run generally will beget success.
Yeah, for sure. So along your career, obviously, you mentioned a number of things that didn't work out. Could you share one error or setback, could be colossal or not, that you endured and what you took away from that?
The responsibility was mine. I tended to share my words of wisdom and then expected people to just simply get out there and do it. Not
Sorry, I don't mean to
realizing,
laugh. I do not mean to laugh. I
oh, no,
apologize.
and that's so true, right?
I totally get it. Yeah,
Because you probably experienced it.
that's right.
And that was not their responsibility, that was mine. Because at the time, I did not and was not comfortable in holding people accountable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Since then, I've learned.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because just before we started, we were having a conversation about a very successful firm that is in large disarray because they're all over the place. And that need to somehow come together is never easy and it takes long commitment. And yeah, that accountability piece is just so critical. So we both belong to EO, which is a peer-to-peer organization that is largely about mentorship. But tell us a little bit about how has mentorship impacted your business? Obviously, I'm sure you have mentors also in fencing, but what kind of an effect has that had? And what would you say to people out there who are contemplating getting a mentor?
I would say everyone needs a mentor. It's almost a fact of progressing through life. Coaching and mentoring are similar. They have slightly different definitions, but the essence is the same, is that the coach or the mentor has been there before. They've been through the struggles. They've stepped in the holes that you are about to step in. And it's really important to have a mentor or a coach that shares similar values. Because for me, that's what kept me engaged with my mentor, and that's been 12, 14 years now. And we still communicate on a regular basis. Short of that, I would not be realizing some of the success, nor have overcome many of the challenges that I've faced in life and in work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I've thanks to you, I've had the privilege of meeting your mentor and spending a bit of time with him. What a remarkable, incredible man. The minute I think of him, I think of all the stories I heard about his marriage and how he dealt with his marriage and his kids and how successful his kids are and all the things that he's accomplished in a very difficult environment, and just nothing but the qualities that you have talked about. I see them embodied in him also.
Absolutely. And he's in his 80s now, and he's still living by them.
I just love that. This is just fantastic. Talk to us about the value of personal and professional ongoing development.
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, I liken it to how does one in the fencing world, how do I take care of my equipment? I'm always tuning it. I'm always testing all the connections. If it's not working, I bring it to what's called an armorer who knows how to how to repair the equipment. It's always fine tuning our tools. And that goes as much for the skills of life. How do I become a better listener? How do I become a better speaker? How do I become a better leader? Those never end. And the technology from the weaponry in fencing is always evolving, as is the technology today. Just look at all the chat GPT, AI, that's evolving at an accelerated pace that most of us don't even know how to keep up with it. Mm-hmm. And it's similar to coming up with an opponent that's 20 years younger than you. How do I beat this person? Now I just want to stay in the game, because right. I know I probably won't beat someone who's 20 years, 30 years younger than me. I still want to stay in the game, and I still want to keep my mind sharp. And in order to keep my mind sharp, I have to keep my body sharp. And in order to keep my body sharp, I have to keep my mind sharp.
Mm-hmm. And speak to us a little bit about what you recommend, because I know you do with obviously with your coaching, life work integration, you do a lot of coaching for a lot of people. What do you recommend to others in terms of personal development, professional development that they should be doing on an ongoing basis?
What I've learned is that there are basically the four categories, right? How do I take care of myself? How do I take care of my family? How do I take care of my business? And then how do I take care of my community? Because we are social animals and we do need all aspects of those. And sometimes that 25% of community is often forgotten. And how I choose that is really the basics that we're all aware of. Make sure I get enough sleep, make sure I drink enough liquids. And over the years, I've learned that it is as important what I do not put in my body by choice as what I choose to put into my body. And over the years, I've eliminated a lot of garbage that comes in boxes or plastic. And that's pretty much just gone out of my diet. And people will comment on my levels of energy and ability to keep going. It's because the conscientious choices I make of what goes in and what does not go in on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. I wish that we could transfuse, something, this data to people. Like right now, it is now a little after noon on a Friday, and this is every week. Wednesday night is the last meal I'm having until at least lunch Friday. That's 44 to 48 hours. Today I'm going all the way till dinner because I have too many phone calls to deal with this afternoon. So the last thing I'm doing is eating. Like, take a break, get your organs to rest a little bit, do the intermittent fasting thing. It's great for weight management, by the way, for anybody who has that issue. Oh, but it's so hard. Oh, I don't know how you can do that. How do you come on, man. Just get her done, right? And sometimes especially talking to you, such a great friend for many years, you just want to shake people. It's like, just do it. Stop moaning.
And that may be easier for those of us who believe again in that word discipline. It still comes down to the discipline. Mm-hmm. And my recommendation to people say, I don't know how you do that. It's take the you out and ask yourself, how can I do that? Mm-hmm. How can I do what Rigely does in incremental steps? I don't want to go that long without food. However, can I go half of that? Can I do less than that? At least start and try it to see what can happen afterwards. We don't know what the results will be. We don't know what our mindset is going to evolve into until we make those incremental steps that we started this conversation with.
You know, it's so funny because I've been for years and years been hearing about the benefits of cold plunging, right? Doing the cold plunge thing. And then so I heard about one particular easy way to start. And the easy way to start is you take your regular shower, a hot shower, and then just at the end, turn it full cold for just a few seconds. And I've also learned a hack there. If you want to try this, if you keep your head on the shower head first, the head is it's easier than having the cold water hit your body first. So I started with that. And then I said, okay, I have a swimming pool, and for 6 months of the year, it's pretty cold. It's really cold. And so I started, I can do this. And I started after doing running or jogging, going in up to the waist, thinking, okay, I'm going to reduce the inflammation, etc. So it was another little incremental step, just like you talked about. Then I said, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go up to the neck. And I started, and I'd walk into the pool and I'd be like, just trying to get there, just trying to get to the thing. And then I spoke to an expert, and the expert said, Ridgely, you're making it way too hard on yourself. Get a coach, right? Advice from Jamie. Here's what you do. Do the opposite. Breathe very, very slowly. Slow down your breathing. As you're walking into the cold water, just shh. Breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly. I was breathing so hard, I bit my cheek and started bleeding in myself as I'm going through this cold water like a knucklehead. And you know what? You learn a little bit, you take it one step at a time. And now, pretty much most of the time when I finish exercising, I'm going to walk into the pool up to the neck. It is very cold, and yet it's so good for you if you just that one little piece at a time that you were talking about earlier. Make that sacrifice. And I know it's also about the discipline, but somehow it is about the little steps and the coach and the thing, figuring out the hack, and then it's a lot easier.
So I have a follow-up question for you. How did you feel when you finally did it and you went all the way in? What was the feeling that you experienced?
So two of them. One was, wow, this wasn't as hard as I thought it was. In other words, that's much of the angst was built up in my own brain. And the other is the feeling, not while you're in the water, but when you get out, it's a great feeling. Like I did it a couple of days ago, and it was in the low 40s here in Florida, which is pretty cold. So go in the pool, come out when the pool is freezing, and I'm standing there wrapped in a towel, helping my wife with something in the garden with no thought whatsoever of needing a jacket because it was way warmer out of the pool than it was in the pool. And the feeling of exhilaration, the physical exhilaration is outstanding. I would recommend it to anybody. I understand that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know? All right, we mentioned something earlier, and it's just something I have to bring up. What is your take on AI? It's here. It looks like it's here to stay. What would you say to the folks out there? What has been your experience with it? Where do you think it's going to impact young entrepreneurs, whether it's young in years or young in time in business?
Well, the first two words is embrace it. It is here. It's definitely taking the way I perceive things and the way I thought of things to a whole nother level. I have not dove into the deep end. I'm actually doing what you were doing. I'm taking those small steps into it, exploring the depths. For young entrepreneurs, what an amazing tool to have at your disposal where you can run a global business with a smaller team that's probably ever anticipated. It's been experienced in the past. It is the future of business. Where it goes and at what speed is largely going to be up to the entrepreneurial community and how they leverage its power.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you what I'm doing, and if you want to participate, just let me know. I started an AI mastermind teaching it.
Okay.
And I'm blessed. I have a partner who's much more tech savvy than I am, very much more geeky than I am. In that sense, he's very, very smart. And the reason why I became committed to it was because I personally didn't want to fall behind. So I thought to myself, if I'm teaching how to use AI, that forces me to stay on the cutting edge of what's going on, to learn about new developments, et cetera. Not that I'm going to use them all, but it was an interesting decision, very much made. Okay, we're going to run this mastermind. Hopefully it'll be financially successful. But the bigger reason was I just didn't want to fall behind myself.
Absolutely. And we will get left behind, those of us who choose not to get on this express train that's leaving the platform.
Right, for sure. Okay, so Here's my favorite question. If you could step into a time warp and go click and take yourself 25 years back and speak to the young Jamie Douraghy of 25 years ago with the experience and wisdom that you have today, what would you want to say to that young Jamie? And oh, by the way, the idea of, oh, I wouldn't change a thing, that does not, nope, that's not acceptable. What counsel would you want to give to young Jamie?
To trust myself more and to ask for feedback. I felt that when I was the entrepreneur and the leader of the company that I knew it all. And I realized how little, in retrospect, how little I knew at that time. Mm-hmm. And the second part is join a mastermind group or an organization such as EO. I didn't join EO until later on in my business career. And the earlier one can immerse oneself in a peer-to-peer experience, the more one can learn, and the more one is open to learning and accepting others.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I'll never forget. It was a business colleague driving down the streets of Beverly Hills. For whatever reason, he pulled over in his red Ferrari, and I'm in my whatever car I was driving. Was not a Ferrari, I assure you. I pull over, and he said to me, he says, his name was Michael. He said, Rigely, I was invited to an organization, and I'm not an organization type guy, but I really think you would like it. It's called EO. And it was a colleague that introduced me to that peer-to-peer organization. I guess I was 28 or something like that, 29. And I would have to say one of the greatest things I ever did was to join that mastermind group of like-minded entrepreneurs who, hey, if you're an entrepreneur, you already know it's lonely at the top. You don't have a lot of feedback unless you ask for it. So you're right. If you don't ask for the feedback, you're not going to get it, especially if you're the boss.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Last thing as we're getting close to wrapping up here, 3 books or resources that have served you well that you would recommend to budding entrepreneurs or even seasoned entrepreneurs. What would those be and why?
Good one. Is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Because without meaning, work and life can sort of feel like a floater that's sort of floating around. A book that I'm reading recently right now is Adam Grant's Rethink or Think Again. I can't remember which one it is. It's one of those two. It's either Think Again or Rethink. I appreciate his very modern approach to the way the business minds work. Mm-hmm. And the third one for me is take Clifton Strengths. I took an assessment. There's many out there. I took my choice is Clifton Strengths. And by learning my talents and my strengths and my blind spots, I really got to study myself. And what better book to read than the ones that the chapters are being written by ourselves? Mm-hmm. And using the tools that any assessment for that matter provides to gain insight. And so this way we can write the chapters of our own story.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think the more you learn about yourself, the more arrows you put in your quiver. You never know when you're going to need which one, what it looks like, what is that particular tool, and it can only serve you in a really, really big way. All right. Final words of wisdom, a nugget from Jamie Douraghy, champion of the USA, #1 last year. What would you share with the entrepreneurs that are out there as we're wrapping this thing up?
I'll use that phrase, just do it until you become it. And when you become it, have the responsibility to show others how you got there.
Jamie, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, sharing some wisdom based on all that you've seen and all that you have become. How about that?
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.